Hello, friends. Welcome to this live stream. And as you can see, we are talking about the quantum biology. You have heard about the quantum mechanics, you have also heard about the quantum nature of the universe, but we are extending this idea and discussing about quantum biology. And I will explain all of this. And the main topic of the video today or the live stream today is about the quantum knows, can you smell using quantum mechanics, or does quantum mechanics play a role in our day-to-day biology? I think that is where the main topic is. So to start with our discussion, I'm going to repeat a few fundamentals very briefly about the quantum mechanics just to build up a case, and then I will bring the topic of the main topic, which is the quantum knows. And as we know that we know a lot of things about the universe. We understand that the universe as we know it, we can actually measure the weight and distance and mass, and what it contains, and every day there are new discoveries, and we are able to pinpoint exactly what is happening in our universe every day. And because all these formulas were given by this gentleman called Einstein, and he gave us this equations, and he gave us the new fundamental about the universe, and because of that we are able to understand about the universe in such great details. Although Einstein is not the only one that we have to thank, we have to actually thank the Indian scientist way back 2500 BC, who actually gave the entire formula of space time, which we are discovering now. But somehow for 2000 years that information was lost until the Galileo during the Renaissance came along, and then Newton came along subsequently, who actually established the various laws which we cherish. And because of Newton's work, we are able to understand so many things. And then finally Einstein, who actually refined the Newtonian physics and gave us the modern physics, and because of which we understand the universe so well. So going back to Einstein, well, Einstein's equations were able to give us details about the universe and really the large things, large objects in our space. But it did not give very good explanation of the atoms. So are the atoms also behave like planets, stars, and satellites, or there is something more to that? So to explain that, there is another scientist we must give credit, and he's a Danish mathematician. His name is Niels Bohr, who actually gave the theory of quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics explains the behavior of very small things. And because of Niels Bohr, we are able to now decipher each and every atom. Everything that we know about our universe, there are two larger groups. One is the relativity, which is given by Einstein, and second is the quantum mechanics, which is given by Niels Bohr, which explains the behavior of atoms, all the atoms. And the holy grail of modern science is to bring both the theories together, and somehow we are not able to bring both of them together, because quantum mechanics does not apply, the formulas of quantum mechanics does not apply to large things. However, the quantum mechanics explains beautifully how each and every atom will behave, and what are the various particles that exist and why they exist. So quantum mechanics is very, very important. So now let's talk about, if small things has a certain behavior, why don't you believe in that point that even the larger things will have the same behavior, although we do not see them, but they may have the similar behavior. So that is where the whole problem is arising. And because of these small things, which are atoms and subatomic particles, they are demonstrating sometimes mind-boggling behavior, which we cannot perceive in our day-to-day life. And now we know that there is an entirely different kind of universe that exists at the quantum level. The behavior of thousands of different types of particles which emerge from nowhere and disappear into something which completely disappear from my space time, and then again appear in some other part of the universe. So we are not able to explain this completely, and because of this there are a lot of mysteries, and there are new theories which are being worked upon by the scientists. And I think we need to understand this behavior, and how do we bridge the gap between the theory of large with the theory of small. So there is a quantum universe which can be explained by quantum mechanics, and one of the features of the quantum universe is the entangled particles. There are several other properties of these small particles, but today we are interested in two properties. One is entangled particles, and other is quantum tunneling. So I'll come to quantum tunneling in a bit, but let me explain what is the entangled particles. So you imagine we have created two particles in our laboratory together, and we know that since these two particles are linked to each other, they are created together, so one will have a property opposite of the other. Say for example, if one is spinning up, the other will spin down. That is the basic concept of the entangled particles. Now the crazy thing that happens is that if you actually take these particles apart to far off distances, and say for example, one particle on Earth here, and other particle in another galaxy like Andromeda, very very far off, but somehow these two particles will be instantaneously they will be connected even after traveling for millions of light years away from each other. And if you actually measure the one of the particles, say for example, the observer in Andromeda galaxy measure that the particle which is present in Andromeda has an upspin, then immediately the particle on the Earth will always, that observer will know that this particle must have a downspin. So this information transfer between these two particles is instantaneous. It is faster than light, and remember Einstein said that faster than light travel is not possible. So this is a behavior which is very very strange at the quantum level, and that is why the quantum behavior is very very different than at a larger scale that we see, like planets and other things that we see at the larger scale. But this is one behavior which will come handy in our discussion while understanding the quantum biology. So moving on, this kind of behavior Einstein did not like, and by the time this quantum theory came into existence, Einstein kind of rejected this whole idea of quantum entanglement. And being a scientist, he said that this is happening. He did not say that this kind of behavior is not happening. He said this is happening, but he called it spooky nature of God. And he did not like this spookiness because when as per his equations or his understanding, there were faster than light travel is not possible, or if you're traveling faster than light, your mass will be infinite. So this spooky nature did not fit into his equations, and because of that he called it spooky nature. And he also said that God does not play dice. So certain things like this which did not go well with Einstein equations. So this is one of the things. And while he agreed that all the tests in the laboratory were showing this behavior, but he called it a spooky nature of God, or the spooky nature of universe, because this is happening, and he had no explanation about this behavior of subatomic particles. Now, the second object that we need to discuss is the quantum tunneling. It is like these subatomic particles can pass through walls. I mean, just to explain this in very simple language, the subatomic particle can disappear and appear in another part of universe instantaneously. They just disappear and appear, and they can pass through walls. So it seems that there is no barrier. So if they hit a barrier, they will simply pass through it and appear on the other side. So these are certain things which are very, very peculiar, and this quantum tunneling happens all the time. Because of the quantum tunneling, we are able to see stars shining. We are able to see all these activities which creates our bodies. If there was no quantum tunneling, none of the chemistry or biology would have taken place. So quantum tunneling happens. They pass through these barriers in our universe and still react with each other and changes the properties. And this is a real thing. We have been able to demonstrate quantum tunneling, which is being able to transfer quantumly one atom to another part of the laboratory. Even beam of light has been transmitted. So such activities are being demonstrated using physical experiments. So it is very real. Quantum tunneling is very real. So why these subatomic particles behave in the way they behave is basically because these particles are have a dual nature. We know that, they also behave like waves. So since they behave like waves, they can pass through different materials and different mediums. And when we observe them after the barrier, they again manifest themselves as particles. So this is very strange. Sometimes they look like particles, sometimes they look like wave, or the duality of nature. And why we do not see this in our at our scale, at a larger scale, is a mystery. So something like that is happening, and because of these quantum nature of these subatomic particles, or even things like protons and neutrons, they all demonstrate this kind of nature. Because of this, even the molecules demonstrate the quantumness. So when there are atoms spread out in the space, if they change their if they are entangled and they change their polarity, spin or charge based on their cousins or entangled particle which are in the other part of the universe. At the same time, they can also pass through barriers of various kinds. We can understand, but we have also seen that when these atoms are part of the molecules, complex molecules, they can still show these quantum behaviors. So even though there are molecules which are bound by chemical bonds, they can, each individual atoms or the protons or neutrons inside these atoms can demonstrate this quantum behavior, and which is very, very strange and give rise to various very strange phenomena. And now let's talk about our quantum biology, which is the topic, because in the end, when we talk about our makeup, our structure, we are all made of chemical compounds. Or when we talk about biology cannot exist without a chemical reaction. For every molecule in our body, there is a chemical reaction that has happened. And even for the DNA and RNA to come into existence, there would have been various chemical reactions which would have created them. And now we are able to replicate the DNA, and DNA is passed from generation to generation. But I think these are all chemicals based on amino acids, and therefore the biology that we know cannot exist without a chemical reaction. And when we talk about chemical reaction, this chemical reaction happens between the compounds, and therefore we have to talk about quantum biology. This is a very, very new subject. Not much of research is done, but in nutshell, when the quantum behavior is being shown by atoms and subatomic particles, and since we are made of atoms, why we should not experience quantum biology is something which we have not given a big thought. But I think this area is emerging, and because of that, we have to realize that if the quantumness of nature exists, then our bodies will also be behaving in a very quantumly manner. And therefore, let's not talk about a lot of complex things. Let's talk about the senses itself, because the way we see, these are all receptors. If our eyes are receptors, our ears are receptors, these are the sensors for the brain. And eventually when we see a particular light, it creates some sort of chemical reaction, chemical impulse, which our brain interpret and understand. So today in this discussion, I'm going to take sense of smell as a topic of discussion. The sense of smell is something which helps us identify various objects in and around ourselves just by smelling. And there are acute sense of smell. Some animals on earth have even more acute sense of smell, like dogs and sharks, who can smell their prey or whatever they are smelling almost a kilometer away. So they have much more acute sense of smell as compared to humans. There are certain animals who do not demonstrate acute sense of smell, or some animals don't have ability to smell at all. So because of this, because of the evolution theory, the Darwin way of thinking, the biology itself became a product of evolution. But if they were also behaving, all these atoms were also behaving like quantumly, then is it true that the evolution is entirely driven by the natural selection? I think that is a subject that we will discuss in the future videos, but today let's restrict ourselves to the sense of smell. So how do we smell? Our usual method of understanding how do we smell is based on what we have studied in our schools and our textbook, and it's a chemical reaction that happens inside our nose. When fumes of certain material reach inside our nose, it basically react chemically to the receptors which are present in the nose. So the idea is that these receptors which are in the upper side of our nose can identify various elements which are floating, which are in the form of fumes in air, and we can smell it. The sense of taste is different from sense of smell. We may smell something, but the sense of taste will be entirely different. So the brain will have to rely on, to make of something, suppose something we are eating, the brain will have to take input from the nose as well as your taste buds to make something. But since we are talking about the sense of smell and what is the impact of the quantum nature of our universe on the smell itself, so let's go back to our discussion. When we smell something, how do we smell? So the whole idea is that when we smell something, the chemical reaction happened in the nose, and if we have a receptor for a particular element, particular compound, then we can identify. If there is no receptor in our nose which can react to that compound which is found in the air, then our nose will not be capable of identifying that chemical in the air. So if we have less receptors in the nose, our nose is less sensitive. So if you look at the dog, because of the evolution, it's a perfect nose. It can identify a million different compounds which are found in nature, and there is a huge lot of brain activity which also happens in the dog's brain, and the brain can interpret these smells. So the whole idea, our usual idea is that the receptor is present in the nose which can identify a particular compound in the air that we inhale, and that's how we smell it. However, at the microscopic level, when we look at these receptors, we find that each receptor it's like a plug and play kind of a situation. When a odor compound comes, or odor molecule comes in the air, it will get attracted to a particular sensor, and if the sensor is present, it will react with that sensor chemically, and that will send impulses to the brain that, hey, I found this compound and it is this rose perfume or whatever. So this is how our understanding of this smell is. However, let me talk about certain things which are very peculiar, which we don't understand. Things like there are compounds which are similar in nature but they smell differently. At the chemical level, this is an example of similar compounds but they smell differently, and our brain is totally incapable of identifying these compounds. They are very similar but they smell differently, and so this is one problem area that we have. The other problem area is there are compounds, I'm actually using the board here. There are compounds which are again similar compounds but they smell the same. So for example, in this case, there is a cyanide compound which is basically very similar to a benzaldehyde compound, and very extremely similar, and unfortunately human nose cannot identify between the two, because we registered even cyanide as benzaldehyde. So if we smell the cyanide fumes, we will think that our brain will interpret that it is a benzaldehyde compound, because these compounds smell the same. So this is very peculiar behavior, and there has been no explanation, no scientific explanation for this kind of a behavior. So maybe the answer for this behavior lies in the quantumness of these subatomic particles, because when the quantum behavior happens, say for example, when one of the proton in one of these chemical compound start behaving in a quantum manner, it start losing that particle behavior, start becoming a wave behavior. So these waves will probably will be the same wave for benzaldehyde and for cyanide. So is it that our nose or the receptor inside our nose are fine-tuned to identify these waves which are happening at the quantum level, and not really look at the well understood biological process where that there has to be a receptor for a particular compound? Maybe this is not something which is happening. What may be happening inside our nose is that there is a sense of quantum smell. Our nose or our receptors inside our nose are fine-tuned to identify these various waves which are happening, which are created by these while quantum tunneling or while getting entangled. And these microwaves, very minute waves, can be identified by these receptor inside our nose, and that is why these receptors get confused, because there are different compounds now, but we can still smell them, and we identify them basically identify them as same compound. As I said in this example, both of these compounds are different but they smell the same. So our brain, our nose, our system, biological system, is not capable of identifying them as separate compounds. So if we follow the conventional understanding, we can smell them. That means we should have the receptor, but we know that receptor for cyanide is not there in our brain. We can identify only benzaldehyde, but how we smell cyanide is not known. So something which is a secret here. And I think since both of these compounds must be demonstrating similar wave patterns, and probably our nose is identifying these waves, and that is why we are able to smell different compounds and identify these wave pattern, because of which we are able to see or smell different senses, even though there is no explanation in in chemistry or in biology. Still we are able to identify such compound, and that is why this is so interesting, so intriguing, so profound. And I think if we start understanding the quantum behavior of our nature in much more depth, then this is something which is amazing. I think this is something which we must start thinking about. So friends, today I covered the quantum smell, but tomorrow I will meet you again on the same subject on quantum biology, and we will discuss about how the evolution must have started using because of the quantum behavior of the atom subatomic particle. So friends, thanks for watching, and I will catch you again tomorrow. Until then, have a nice day. Bye bye.